gravestones, a drystone wall built across the ruined church's doorway, chunks of medieval white sandstone, a 50p from the 60s and a piece of ironwork that could have come from a coffin are just some of the latest discoveries made by archaeologists at Historic Kilbride. I'm Kathie Griffiths, and I caught up with archaeologist Dr Claire Ellis, who recently spent 2 days on the site in Lerag's Glen, just a few miles out of Oban, after Historic Environment Scotland gave permission for more of the church's past to be uncovered. I also met up with Seymour, chairman of Friends of Historic Kilbride, who's looking forward to the return of visitors and fundraising to help keep up the massive conservation and restoration scheme that's well and truly underway. So Claire, this is day 2,
yes,
is that right? So what happened on day 1?
Well, day 1, basically there was a big pile of rubble against the west gable. So this is the west gable of the church. And basically we took that rubble away with a view to exposing that whole, you can see there's a doorway there. We want to expose the whole doorway so that Colin can come along the stonemason, and the idea is the lintel, you can't really see it now, it's behind the scaffolding, but the lintel is collapsing, it's really dangerous and you can't walk through that doorway and liable to lose the whole wall. So right. He needs to consolidate it, but to do that we needed to make sure there was nothing of archaeological sensitivity underneath, and also go down to right to the bottom of the doorway so he can consolidate the whole thing.
So where I can see the start of the doorway, so how many feet up from you've had to dig out, haven't you, before you were able to?
See, if you move a bit closer, you can see we've only gone down about 30-40 centimetres actually from this surface, you know, the ground surface as it now is, and you can see in there the cobble. So that's the original ground surface, or the original cobble surface of the church. So you can see the nice cobbles, and then you've got the doorway. Now originally that doorway, I don't think there was a doorway there when the church was first built. I think it was probably a window. If you look at the top, you can see that it tapers, the stonework tapers, so it'd be tapering inward really well. So you're allowing more light to come into the church. So I think it was originally a window. Then at some point they've decided to change it into a door. So they've put in a door, and if we go around the other side, you'll be able to see they've actually cut down into the wall slightly, and then they've built basically the threshold. They've rebuilt that to put the door in, and they've then put the door in and used part of the window as part of the door. And then later on you can see that somebody's come along, and probably somebody was maybe using this to keep stock in, or for some reason they wanted to block up the doorway, and they've then later blocked up the doorway again. So you can see the surviving 4 or 5 courses at the bottom there is when the door's then been blocked up. So you've got at least 3 phases of activity just within this one doorway. There's a bit of debate whether it was actually just that was blocked up to keep stock out or to keep stock in.
Because it was used for grazing, wasn't it, at some point?
We think so.
Yeah.
That's what we're beginning to think. When the church was decommissioned in 1864, it was probably then, and it was sort of prettified into a ruin. That's when they put this, this sort of concrete
capping on
mortar
the
over the top.
Yeah.
The Victorians sort of turned it into something that intended to look like a folly. And then we think maybe some shepherd was keeping livestock actually within this as a sort of pen.
Right.
Yeah. So I think that's possibly when it got blocked up to stop them scooting off and escaping. So yeah, so it's got a nice, not an incredibly old building as it is, but it's got lots of phases and activity even within its short lifespan. So that's what we're doing this side, and basically we've done the same the other side. And the story's even more clear on the other side. And then we've also exposed, look like grave slabs, but they're not in situ, they've been reused. That happens all the time in grave.
Recycled grave slabs.
Yeah, it happens all the time. So like for example, I did some work on Lismore a few years ago now, where we lifted all the medieval grave slabs, and none of them were in situ. They'd all been reused on other people's graves, and probably been reused 4 or 5, maybe even more times. So I think these ones along there definitely aren't in situ. They've just, I think one of them has probably been reused as a bit of a threshold stone to get into the church. So, but again, so we've got those at the other side. So it's quite nice. So yeah, it makes quite a nice little story. So it wasn't actually an archaeological dig as such, but it's just allowing Colin to get to the whole door to consolidate it. But as part of that, you know, we've done a bit of interpretation and recording as we've gone on.
So have you found anything else while you've been down there?
Yeah, we've got some nails that were associated with some of the plaster. You can see just at the bottom there's a little bit of internal plaster surviving. That would have been, the church would have been all plastered and white. And there's some nails that presumably associated with something that was nailed into that wall. So we found some nails. We found a bit of, looks like a Victorian, might be a coffin handle or a door handle, something like that. And we've also got a 50p coin, which you can't see the date on from the other side. So that's probably, who knows, 60s,
Hang on, let me check my pockets.
Yeah. So yeah, but we're keeping all that because again, it all adds to the, you know, the story.
How about the painted plaster?
We've possibly got a bit of painted plaster. I need to get that home and have a proper look at it and
then do
see.
you want to say something about these?
And then then we've got
these might be medieval.
These might be. We've got one bit of stone here that you can see. It looks. Oh, there is a B. You can actually see. I thought it was a D, but there's actually a B being carved on it.
Oh yeah.
But nothing else. So I don't know where that's come from, what that is. And this is actually quite unusual because this is a basalt, so it's unusual to have carvings on that. So that's got a letter on it. This is white sandstone, and there's another piece there as well. That's no, here. This piece of white sandstone. There's not much of it, and some of it's been used in the entrance. Lismore Cathedral, the white sandstone, this same white sandstone was used as for the edging of decorated window frames and the doors and things. So you can imagine it was hard, it'd be white, painted white, and then you had this lovely white sandstone, beautifully carved doors and window frames. So my theory is that this white sandstone is probably derived from the original medieval church, which we don't even know where it is here on this site, possibly up on the mound. But this is probably reused stone from that original medieval church. So that's quite nice, yeah. And it ties in because Lismore's associated with here because Kilbride got named as the centre of the bishopric after, and it was taken away from Lismore. But the two churches may be built by the same sort of, the McDougalls, and around about the same sort of time. So this stone, I think, probably comes from either from Morven or from Cars. Oh, it's a place I can't remember the name of it now. On Mull, there's a potential quarry on Mull. So stone was actually imported. It wasn't native, it wasn't locally derived. It was actually brought in by the masons to decorate the church and make, this, what would have been in the 12th, 13th century, an amazing site, with this beautiful carved windows and doorways and things. So that's really nice. And then I just kept this piece aside because it's actually another sort of sandstone, but it's actually definitely been tooled and worked to make, edging of a door. And again, that may be from the earlier medieval building as opposed to this much later structure.
So how many more days are you going to be here? This is
our last day today. Yeah, I think we're going to get finished today. I've just got to literally just plan the other side, and then when Colin's done his stuff and then all the scaffolding's down, I've already been previous day, and I've taken photographs in a certain way across the whole gable, inside and out, and there's a computer package that stitches them all together, so you get a really nice, really detailed photographic image of the facade. So I'll do that again once Colin's done it, so we've got a pre and post work photograph of each gable for the for the records, so it go into the archive in Edinburgh. So we'll come back and do that, and then we'll have to backfill the trenches once Colin's done his work.
Oh, it's all got to go back.
Yeah. Well, Colin will probably use a lot of this rubble in reconstructing and consolidating the door, but a lot of the soil will have to go back because at the moment, certainly around the other side and here as well, people might fall in, and also the floor's not protected at the moment. We might have a chat with Historic Scotland, because one thing that would be really nice, we could raise loads and loads of money to do it, would be to consolidate this wall here that needs doing desperately, and then you could actually clear out the interior and just have the original floor exposed, because it's a nice stone flag floor. So again, it would make a really nice structure to come and visit. So but that's a long-term plan, isn't it? Trying to raise lots of cash. You can
see here with the sycamore, there's a huge great bore of an enormous sycamore tree that's been cut down, but it is still alive and it's still destroying the remains of the session house on the side. So that's stage 3 of our preservation plan. That was the urgent thing, because that really was about to fall down But this is the next thing, is to get the sycamore bore out and to get this restored, get that side of the church sorted out. And once we've done that, then we might be able to try and expose the stone floor and actually have it as a really nice monument. But there's still quite a lot of urgent stuff to do to stop the thing falling down.
Long-term project
and a lot of money to raise.
But you can see on the top, I mean, where you can see that the Victorian concrete on the top is all broken up now, and the stone's beginning to get lost from the top. And you can see, like there, I mean, just everywhere you look, really, it's all a bit hairy, to be honest. So yes, we need a rich benefactor.
Yes, get in touch. Anyone out there?
Kathie Goes to Historic Kilbride was written and presented by Kathie Griffiths. The contributors were Dr. Claire Ellis and Seymour Adams. The music was by Chris Bennett, and the editor was Stephen Day. It was a YVEX media production for the Open Times.